Thank you for stopping by. This is Jeffrey Weiss, your political activist, keeping you informed of local and world events. Today we discuss Secretary of Commerce Wilbur Ross, a man out of touch with reality. One of President Donald Trump's top aides suggested the shutdown gave furloughed workers free vacation time. And on Thursday, Democratic leaders pounced after Commerce Secretary Ross said he didn't really quite understand why unpaid workers were going to food banks. When pressed further, Ross said the laid-off workers could get bank loans based on receiving back pay once the freeze was over. The reality is, banks do not loan on future wages and have not done so since the 1980s. The only source of loans for workers are payday loan companies that charge usurious rates between 300 and 1,200%. This senile old man who made billions liquidating, bankrupting, and merging companies earned himself $100 million fees in the process is a carrion-sucking vulture. As the government shutdown stretched into its 34th day, and as roughly 800,000 federal workers were bracing for the second missed paycheck, the White House was facing an intensifying backlash over seemingly out-of-touch comments from Trump's group of wealthy advisors. The comments are also handing Democrats leverage, as party leaders and Trump have failed to reach a compromise for the president's demand of $5.7 billion in border wall funding. Ross went on CNBC to minimize the shutdown's toll of thousands of workers who live paycheck to paycheck. He said, quote, "These are basically government-guaranteed loans because the government has committed. These folks will get back pay once the whole thing gets settled down," Ross said. So there is really no good reason why there really should be a liquidity crisis now. Now, true, the people might have to pay a little bit of interest. Of course, that's 300 to 1,200%, but the idea is that paycheck or zero is not really a valid idea, he continued. Federal employees have reported going to homeless shelters to find food for their families, but when asked on Thursday about the desperate measures, Ross replied, "Well, I know they are, and I don't really quite understand why." Ross argued that with loans guaranteed by the back pay, federal workers should be able to find the money to carry themselves through the shutdown. Regardless of the individual cost on federal employees, Ross said the shutdown won't be too damaging to the country's image or economy. You're talking about 800,000 workers, and while I feel sorry for the individuals that the hardship has caused, 800,000 workers, if they never got their pay, which is not the case, and they will eventually get it, but if they never did get it, you're talking about 1/3% of GDP. So it's not like a gigantic number overall. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi quickly pounced on the comments, characterizing them as a let-them-eat-cake attitude. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer also drew parallels with Ross and Marie Antoinette, pointing out that Ross is a billionaire while many federal employees live paycheck to paycheck. Those comments are appalling and reveal the administration's calloused indifference toward the federal workers it is treating as pawns, Schumer said. Secretary Ross, they can't just call their stockbroker and ask them to sell some of their shares. Even Trump distanced himself from Ross's comments, saying Thursday afternoon, "I haven't heard the statement, but I do understand that perhaps he should have said it differently." Still, Trump praised Ross's performance and suggested the Commerce Secretary was merely implying mortgage lenders and grocers in the same communities as federal workers would help them work along. Ross also tried to backpedal on his tone Thursday afternoon telling Bloomberg TV that he and the rest of the administration are aware of the hardships federal workers face, and that he was merely trying to make sure that they are aware that there are possible other things that could help somewhat mitigate their problems. Other Trump officials have also received backlash for comments that seemed out of step with thousands of federal workers who have burned through their savings. Kevin Hassett, chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors, got flack earlier in the shutdown after appearing to compare the shutdown to free vacation time. Hassett said a huge share of government workers had been planning to take vacation days around Christmas and New Year's holiday, and thus wouldn't have worked during parts of the shutdown anyway, but would get to keep their vacation days, leaving them better off because they received back pay. Hassett later said his words were taken out of context. Of course, nobody thinks that government workers are better off because of the furlough, he told reporters last week. It's demoralizing and a tremendous waste of human capital, he said. Laura Trump, an advisor and daughter-in-law to the president, was criticized earlier this week after saying the shutdown was necessary to get strong border security. Listen, it's not fair to you, and we all get that, she told Bold TV when asked what she would say to furloughed workers. But this is so much bigger than any one person. And Larry Kudlow, director of the National Economic Council, told reporters at the White House on Thursday that the shutdown was a glitch and that the economy would bounce back the nanosecond the government reopened. Kudlow also praised essential federal employees going without pay for working for free and volunteering. When a reporter asked Kudlow on his choice of words volunteering, Kudlow snapped back, "You know what I'm saying." President Trump has also generated controversy by saying earlier this month that he can relate to government workers who are working without pay, but added without evidence that most federal employees support his fight for funding the border wall. Federal employees are becoming increasingly frustrated with Washington's standoff. A group of workers staged a sit-in outside Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's office on Wednesday, demanding an end to the shutdown. On Thursday, a reporter showed that the number of federal employees filing for unemployment more than doubled in the second week of January and increased by more than 1,300% from the same period last year. Some of the president's allies have started privately worrying that the seemingly calloused comments reinforce the perception that the president and his team of wealthy advisors are out of touch with the public. Although prioritizing things like a border wall may make sense in the abstract as a policy determination, it gives the impression of not caring about the day-to-day lives of those impacted by the shutdown, a former senior White House official said. The National Air Traffic Controllers Association also took issue with Ross's comments about their workers. Transportation Security Administration officers and air traffic controllers are working without pay, and many TSA officers are calling in sick in record numbers to find alternative ways to pay their bills. Ross said he was concerned about the safety risks the shutdown had created, but put the responsibilities on the employees themselves. It's kind of disappointing that the air traffic controllers are calling in sick in pretty huge numbers, he said. If my articles interest you, please use the link to check out my website and books. Thank you very much.